So discretionary trusts, you'd have seen that I've touched upon this in the previous video, and it's part of this series of estate planning videos and options that we've got on the website. Discretionary trust is something which is set up in your will. We do have trust funds, we'll discuss that in one of the other videos, but this is set up at the last part of the will where we would normally be putting the shares out to who's going to inherit. And in the classic situation that we're using in this theme of videos is a couple with 3 children. The traditional will would just provide that inheritance then to the surviving spouse. They receive the money, we've protected the property, and once they've received that money, if they were going into care in the future, that money would be factored in. If the second one of you's died, your children are inheriting the money, they having that money outright. The discretionary trust is a classic trust fund set up, which is like a family bank. And because it's like the family bank, it can produce loans. And this is important. It's legally entitled to produce these loans because the purpose of the trust is to protect the money for future generations. So the first one of you's died, you've got your money in the bank. That, instead of going as an inheritance to your surviving spouse, we loan it to them because the purpose of your trust is that protection. The beauty there is if they look at going into care in the future, the trustees can legitimately recall that loan because the purpose of the trust is now under threat because that money is not protected. After both of you've died, the money is going to go to the 3 children. And because the discretionary trust is formed, the children are the most likely trustees. They loan themselves or each other the money from that trust fund. So in an estate that's worth £600,000, each of the 3 children will have £200,000 each, and they've borrowed it. First child is potentially going to have some divorce issues in the future. Because they borrowed the money from the trust, that money cannot be factored into the divorce proceedings. Because it's a discretionary trust, and therefore it's at the discretion of the trustees who has what, if anything, then they can't set out in an argument they were fully entitled to that. That argument can't happen. That money is legally recalled, therefore protecting that inheritance. Matrimonial matters have been dealt with and the divorce is final. If there's been a need to recall that money, 99% of the time it's a paper exercise of listing assets and liabilities. Therefore, we don't tend to have to take the money and repay them, but that can happen. Situation 2, we've got a slightly more risque child. They've made a couple of bad business decisions, there might be some creditors coming, they may have other issues, and there's risk to this money that was loaned to them. The trustees have got options here. If we've got a situation where somebody's in a very bad state, this could be from substance abuse and so forth, we can recall that money. They could own a property in the name of the trust and allow for them to live there, protecting them from access to that money and therefore protecting that individual. Or we can put a charge against their property or recall that money. The third child has been successful and they have made a lot of money. They've got an inheritance tax problem for their own estate. Because they borrowed the money from the family trust, on their death, well, that's a liability of their estate. Therefore, because it's recalled by the trust, and it's a liability, it doesn't factor into their inheritance tax. So that £200,000 would have had, at 40%, an £80,000 inheritance tax bill. But because it's a liability of the family trust, which runs for 125 years, that is recalled, and that child, their children would take the share that their parent would once have taken, and that can be however it's set out at the discretion of the trustees, or by how the guidance memorandum sets it out. So this happens on your death. It doesn't happen during your lifetime. In the next video, we've got an alternate option of creating a trust fund now, during your lifetime, and this allows for you to use these loans to mitigate your own inheritance tax position. So instead of gifting money to the children, why not set up the trust? And I'll take you to that video explaining how we do that. Thank you.